Welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the mortgage architects that are building design into their business to unlock scale and achieve freedom. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who built a long-term mortgage career through consistency, community, relationships, and steady growth rather than chasing trends or shortcuts. From starting out cold calling refinance prospects to becoming a President's Club producer focused on balance and impact, he brings a grounded perspective on what sustainable success looks like. Ray Severance, welcome to the Lowdown.
Hey, Connor. Well, thanks for having me this morning. I'm looking forward to a good conversation and sharing a little bit about my story.
Absolutely, man. Likewise, it's a pleasure to have you here, and it's been great kind of getting to know you as we've prepared for this. And something I like to just dive right in, man. And you mentioned that you got started in this business fresh out of high school, started cold calling, learning everything from nothing, right? So, how did those earlier years in the business kind of shape the way you approach clients and growth today? I can only imagine what it's like getting into mortgage right out of high school. So I'm curious to hear how that was.
Yeah, it was dreadful. I didn't have a database. There was no such thing as internet leads, and I couldn't even honestly spell mortgage. I remember getting the job. I had a good friend, and he just placed a stack of leads, bankers and tradesmen lead, on my desk and said, "Hey, call these people and see if they want to refinance." And I literally had no idea. I had no financial concept. I was just a kid. But honestly, what it taught me was really just learning from mistakes. I really had to fumble my way through it. There was not any kind of training regimen. It was a small broker shop, and just having to pound the phone every day and wait for someone to finally pick up. And I remember the first yes I got. I'm literally holding the phone up like, what do I do now? What do I do now? And man, I was just persistent. I needed the money. I was newly getting married. So it was really helpful. People weren't really following the rate code I was giving them. I really tried to focus on connecting and building a trust and building relationship back then.
What were the daily expectations in that type of role? Like, how many calls were you expected to make? Like, what was the kind of turn and burn aspect of it all?
Yeah. Again, really just a small mom and pop shop. There was not this call center vibe or anything like that. But I was a poor, 20-year-old, and I just needed the money, and this was the way to do it. I was actually working 3 jobs at the same time, and this one seemed to be most lucrative. They sold me a bill of goods. Get in the mortgage business, you'll make a ton of money. And I just was dumb enough to believe them, and lo and behold, so I would just go through that stack. I mean, I had hundreds and hundreds of just names, balances, rates, and I would just call through them until I eventually got someone. And just year after year, just started to create this database. And in some sense, I was fortunate. I got in the late 90s, and people had rates of 8 or 9. And when I told them I could get them 7.5, they were excited. I didn't know better. And so I just kept a system. Without knowing the value of that at that point in time in my life, I just stuck to the phone. That was my only option. And that's what really built the foundation of my career.
Love that. And so as your career has progressed, you've described it as like steady incremental progress rather than just like a big breakthrough moment. You got this, great new client or some builder account or something like that. So how has that long-term consistency influenced the way that you define success now compared to maybe earlier in your career?
Yeah, it's definitely a different definition of success from what I felt, 25, 26 years ago to where I am now. And I don't think I was ever the overnight success story, right? Every year it was a matter of, what can I do to get a little bit better? How do I create better communication? How do I create better systems? And I just had to stay curious. I had to get insight and mentoring and training from outside resources. So, my goal was to just consistently refine. And at first, I didn't really realize that was a formal approach. It was just something I needed to do. But I really believe that it was those, small improvements over a long period of time that really just compounded into shaping my business. The town I'm from, it's a small town and there's not huge loan amounts. We're not in like some kind of metropolis. And so really having to get the volume was just staying persistent, staying consistent. And lo and behold, it really started to build into what I would say is, solid, fruitful career.
Yeah. And a common you've said relationship a lot, and clearly you're very intentionally relationship driven. Some might even say like old school in that regard. You're using the heavy use of calls, text, face-to-face meetings, like really just kind of that belly to belly approach. What about that approach allows you to be different from, others in the market that might be using more automated models or kind of leaning on some of the other tools that the industry provides for follow up and prospecting?
Yeah. So my house, I've never had a home office, so I never really could work from home. So I've always had to have a place to go. And, kind of having a main street office has lent itself for allowing people to come in and really sit across the desk from someone who has anxiety, has questions, has confusion, and really being able to meet them and connect with them to let them know that I'm going to guide them through this process really resonates with a lot of people. A lot of my clients are first-time home buyers, and when they know that they have someone that is accessible, that is going to coach them and guide them, it means a lot. And we've had technology for a long time, and I've always found that technology has supported my business, whether it's an application or now AI or CRMs and things like that. But to me, this emotional process of buying a home is so requiring of reassurance, of experience, and having someone that you can just go to that's going to pick up the phone, or you can even pop in an office. To me, that's really helped shape my business. Now, I've got a lot of clients that I've never met before. We just do an online application, but I found a way to collaborate with technology to still bring my empathy, my guidance over the phone and through the process. And really, that's been a cornerstone of how I've built my business.
Yeah. So in working with like the first time home buyer population, what do you find to be some of the limiting beliefs that they have that you're constantly kind of fighting against to try and tell them, no, you can buy a home? Like, what are some of the things that come up a lot for you?
Yeah, there's just a lot of misnomers. So they don't understand what their allowances are. They get confused about down payment options. They get confused about budgets. Financial literacy is really poor in our school systems. A lot of our customers, they don't understand the credit system. They don't understand how to put a budget together. And so when I can, kind of sit down with them and guide them through understanding what's their comfort level, what's the importance of owning a home, what does it do for creating wealth, how do we manage your assets best, does it make sense to put a chunk of money down, or does it make more sense to keep that in your account for a rainy day? Really just kind of helping them think through each and every one of those different aspects just brings a lot of comfort, and it kind of clears up the fog of, can I do it? What are the allowances? What are the eligibilities out there? Really being able to uniquely partner with them and show them how in their unique situation, there's a unique solution. And my job is to kind of get them there. And that really helps quite a bit.
Yeah. How rewarding is it for you to live in like your hometown and it being kind of a smaller town where you probably know a lot of your clients, I would assume, or might even encounter them like in the grocery store? Like, how rewarding is that for you?
Yeah, it means a lot. I never thought I was going to be a mortgage guy. I never woke up and said, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do." But I've always cared for people. I've always been a relational person. I've always wanted to try to impact someone's life in a meaningful way. And when I think about like the big three in life, usually get married, you have a baby, and then you buy a house, right? And I joke I can't help with the first two, And so, but if I can help with that third goal, and so my family jokes with me. I mean, no matter where we go in town, whatever we're doing, I'm gonna bump into someone that just, you know, I'm like the mayor, and I don't say that from a pompous way. It's just over 30 years of being in the business, you just connect with a lot of people. So it's incredibly rewarding. I really believe that, the home is the center of it all, right? It's where you go at night to, put your feet up. It's where you're raising your children. It's your sanctuary, your safe place. And so to have the opportunity to help create that for somebody, it's a privilege. I really am grateful for it. It's been a really rewarding career, and it's great to see people that, they'll still thank me years later. We'll have client parties, and people have come for 10, 12 years, and they just thank you so much. And sometimes it's a little awkward. I'm like, okay, that was a decade ago, but it's all good. Yeah, glad I could do that. Yeah, it's all good. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I think that's great, man, because I mean, the statistics are not in favor of the loan officer when it comes to being remembered by the client, right? Like after the transaction, after they buy the house and they get the keys, statistically, I think it's something like 84% of originators will never work with that client again. And so, to have that kind of connection, I mean, that takes a very special and unique way of approaching the business that, is uncommon. So I think it's amazing that you have those relationships and that people are recognizing you outside of the house. It just kind of speaks to the way you're approaching the business as a whole. Now, shifting gears a little bit here, from an organizational standpoint, you rely a lot on Outlook as like your main system. And even after years out of the, in the industry, it might make some people nervous and cringe a little bit for you and be like, oh my gosh. But what makes that system work for you? And what habits help you kind of stay disciplined with that follow up?
Yeah, it is funny. Outlook is probably not the most refined, efficient tool, but it's worked for me. But really, it's not. It's not so much the software. What I really think it is having a focal plan, having a tool that helps me with follow up, something that helps me focus on my daily tasks. What are those priorities? What are the important things to help grow my business, work on my business, and work with my clients? And then consistency. And so thankfully, I fell upon Outlook as a tool years ago. But as I've continued to use it and supplement it with other resources, really what it's taught me is having that plan and that system in place. I think whatever CRM you use, the best one is the one that you actually use. And so I've got lots of colleagues that use Excel or they use a notebook, and they just use it consistently. And so what I really think is key is just having that plan and system in place for focus, for follow-up, for task management. And so that's what it's done for me. And I've refined it over the years, and I've added other pieces to it, but it works for me. Yeah, it still does.
Yeah. Well, great, man. I mean, if you got a system that works and you use it, that's the best system to use, right? They say the best database is the one that you will use, and so if it's working for you, man, there's no shame. And you've said
right.
that communication and education are really kind of key parts for you with the client experience. How do
Yeah.
you simplify a very complex situation and all the different concepts that come along with mortgage in a way that helps clients feel confident without feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, so I always try to understand who I'm meeting with, and how are they wired, what works best for them. I use a lot of stories, and I use a lot of analogies. Basically, my approach is similar to a passenger jumping on a plane. They often want to know where their seat is. They want to know when they're getting there. They clearly want to know their destination. And ideally, they'd love to get there with as little turbulence as possible. Now, every once in a while, I have a client that wants to kind of peek into the cockpit, right? And they'll ask a few questions. What does that knob do? What does that lever do? And what I really try to help them understand is, I'm happy to explain anything, but there's no way they're going to become a pilot. I've got years and years. I've got licensure. But here's the thing. Our goals are the same. We both want to get to this destination on time, as smoothly as possible, with as little turbulence. So I'll really try to guide them through the process in bite-sized pieces, making sure they understand each piece without overwhelming them, and really getting them to trust me. And if they trust me and like me, then they're going to delegate all of that stress, all of that anxiety, all of those technical questions to me, the professional, and they can just enjoy the ride. And, again, you're buying a house. I always say it's a fruit salad of emotion. There's anxiety, there's excitement, but as much of the stress that I can take on or our team can take on, I have found really makes the experience for them much better and ultimately is what results in return, repeat, referral business.
Yeah. Well, I love that analogy because it's like, you know, how terrible would it be if the passenger on the plane started trying to fly it? And
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
just let me fly the plane,
Right.
okay? Like, I don't think this is going to work out well if you start. But, and at the end of the day, it's like sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. But in the past, and it's been a while since we, prepared for this. So I'm not sure if any of this has actually changed. But when we talked originally, you had lost some support from your team and and that pulled you back into some more of the clerical and administrative sides of the business. How has that shift affected your ability to be productive? And what have you learned about where your highest value time really belongs?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I never thought I'd be a mortgage guy, and I am not someone that loves to get in the weeds of reading handbooks and deep into the guides. Now, I understand the business, I understand how to run AUS. I'm a good loan engineer, I can structure a deal, and I can be as creative as the next guy. But I had over years refined a system where I had someone helping me with my marketing. I had a scheduling coordinator. I had someone that did a lot of the admin work. And so post COVID, when some of that shifted and I made a decision to change platforms, I had to redesign my business model and my business team. And it did help me to get back in touch with a little bit more empathy. You're that much more closer to the client. You're actually collecting some of those conditions. You're understanding the tension they feel. But as of late, over the last few months, I have redesigned the team. And so I've got not only my own personal assistant, I've got a loan production assistant, and then I also have my processor. So there's a kind of a foursome there that attacks the business, and each one has their own focal point. And what that does for me is it allows me to stay mindful and focused on the prospecting, on the revenue generating activities. I believe solely that once you've sold a deal, every minute you spend on it, you're losing money. It's already in the door. I'll always jump in at any stage if we need to correct, but let's let the process and the team handle it. And that allows me to focus on relationship building and that prospecting, those real green generating activities.
So some folks I talk to kind of struggle with this. How have you gotten your clients and referral partners on board with the team? What others tell me they struggle with is they make the hire, they have the team, they feel like the leverage is there, but the clients and the referral partners, they still want to talk to the loan officer. So how are you sort of navigating that to make sure that the team can kind of take the process once the handoff is made and the client and the referral partner kind of keep you out of it and lean on the team just like you?
Yeah, I go back to my analogy. If I'm your pilot, you don't want me handing you a soda when you get thirsty, right? You want me to do my highest and best. And, similar to like an operating room, you want the surgeon doing those critical things. There's a role for the nurse. There's a role for, the administrative team. I always try to make the first connection with my client. I try to set expectations. I try to make sure I understand the story and the goal. And then I come up with the general plan. But then I let them know. I say, hey, listen, I can't do this on my own. I've got a team. I'm committed to getting you from start to finish. I've got people that help me do that well so that I can stay focused on the most critical phases of this process for you. You've got my cell phone. You can text me, call me. Part of what makes me unique is I'm accessible. And I say that to my partners as well. And so I think when you explain the process and define the dynamics, everyone's good with it, and because they can relate to that concept, right? In any good system, whether it's a kitchen with the sous chef or it's that pilot with the steward or that medical operating room, it takes a team, and everyone's good with that. In fact, they want that, and so I think if you can help them understand that shift, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you. I mean, you see the trend out there among producers, and once that process is in place, it's well defined, everyone knows what their job is, and it's not just a collection of support personnel that's kind of everyone's doing the same job all at the same time. When that process is there, it's impressive, Realtors notice it. They want to work with someone that has a process because it makes them look good, because clients love it and they feel like well taken care of, and they appreciate the realtor for putting them in place with the loan officer. And so everybody wins at the end of the day. So, I think there's a lot to be said about process, and the industry as a whole really could focus on it a lot more and helping originators kind of get to that point. So I love that you've gotten there. Now, another focus of yours right now is just being more visible, being more, out there with your brand, doing things like being on a podcast even. What has made that transition challenging for you, and what motivates you to kind of pursue it anyway?
Yeah, although I think that there are some fundamentals that are maybe old school in my business, the meeting face to face. I've got two different clients I'm meeting with tonight in my office. We'll sit down. I use my Outlook. There are some of these old school fundamental tools, but industry changes, society changes, culture changes, trends changes. And so I've realized that just lots of people are spending time consuming online content, whether it's social media or podcasts. And so how can I get exposure of what I do and how I do it? I don't want to be an influencer, but I really want to be an educator. I want to be accessible, and I want to be relatable. And so that if someone finds my content and it helps them along the way, even if ultimately they get nudged into working with someone else, it's all good. It's just, I want to be someone that kind of is pushing people up and doing it in a way where I'm down to earth, and what you see is what you get. But I feel like that authenticity helps people really. And so that's been a big shift in my business probably over the last year.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I just learned before the episode that Ray is like a big time like sand volleyball player. Ray, I think you need to get like some content of you just smashing, just spike. The clients will roll in, dude.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
now you've talked about kind of balancing career growth and being present with family. I think loan officers go through different seasons professionally. Everybody does, really. There are different ages of your kids, create different demands of you as a parent and things of that nature. But I'm just curious, like, in your opinion, how do you think loan officers should approach growth differently, kind of depending on the season of their life?
Such a super important question for people to ask themselves. I know over the years I've left a ton of money on the table, but the table I've been at is the dinner table, or at the soccer game, or those quiet little afternoons where I'm home in the summer with my kids. For me, I have financial goals and I want nice things for my family, but I've realized as a dad and as a husband, there's a window and I'm never going to get it back. And I'm sure there will be a day where I would spend a ton of money trying to, get that one more dinner where all of us are together. And I just think through good friendships and good mentors through my life, that was imbued in me. So I think it's important. Now, hey, I don't look poorly upon anyone that is working 60, 70 hours a week to get that next loan and that next loan. I think all that is relative. So I think it's really a matter of understanding how you're wired, what's important. But for me, it's really precious for me to still be able to teach gym at my kids' school on Friday, or serve on the school board. I protect my family time, nights and weekends with my kids and my family. So I just really think it's identifying what your goals are and then mapping out a plan to get there, and then really protecting it. And so I've been fortunate in that regard. And it wasn't always the same. There's a 10-year gap between my son and my daughters for the most part, and early on. And I started to see the impact. And so by the grace of God, as my daughters were born, I was able to make some of those shifts, and I wouldn't go back. And I really fight hard not to compare. I don't look at other people. I realize what's important for me, and work that plan and work that life balance.
I love that, man. So kind of last question here. For originators who have figured out the basics but still feel stuck between maybe just maintaining stability and pursuing the next level, what principles have helped you continue evolving without having to just reinvent yourself completely?
Yeah, I found earlier in my career, one of the most frustrating things was just not having a deal to work on, and just feeling like I want to do something tangible to make it feel like I'm being successful. So I think a critical first step is making sure you know how to have a successful day. You can't control a closing. You can't control necessarily even an application, but you can control all the things that lead to that. You know, the conversations, the interactions, the one-to-ones. I think staying curious, really being willing to learn and always sharpen your tool, get in front of new people, new ideas, never stop learning. And for me, it was a shift of my goal is really to care for people, not to sell mortgages. So the better I can do about caring for people and investing in relationships, the opportunities will come. Whereas early on, I felt like I need to sell another mortgage today. I needed to sell another mortgage today. And I would get hurt or disappointed if I didn't. But when I made the shift to caring, connecting, and building, I found that most people don't, say no to that. They're very open to that. And it just created this relationship building network where I also get the opportunity to help them with their home loan when it makes sense. So play the long game, find out ways to win the day, and focus on caring and building relationships. I think that goal is really critical.
Great advice, man. Great advice. Well, listen, Ray, I appreciate you joining the lowdown. We're kind of winding things down here. Before we say goodbye, is there anything else that you'd like to share? Was there anything you came on today hoping to talk about that we didn't get a chance to talk about? I want to give you kind of the opportunity now to, speak your mind or share whatever you'd like to share.
Yeah, I just don't look for that overnight magic silver bullet. I think stay consistent, care for people, stay genuine. It's trust is built in those small little moments of just connecting with people. And so I just think that having a plan where you put that as your priority is probably the most key thing you can do, because then you can go to bed at night saying, I really did all that I could do or all that I should do. And there's lots of little tweaks and habits and systems and things like that, but I feel like that's the priority.
Well, that's great advice, man. Well, thank you for being on the lowdown, Ray. I appreciate you joining me. And for those who are listening, before you go, if anything that we spoke about today really struck a chord with you, I want to point you toward two things. First is the Lowdown Mortgage Community newsletter. It's weekly content that's built for producers who are building something bigger. You can subscribe at www.lowdownmortgagecommunity.com/subscribe. And then second, if you are feeling like there's something in your business that needs to change but can't quite put your finger on it, I would recommend you go take the Lowdown Diagnostic. It's 3 assessments, 5 minutes, and it gives you a real dollar figure on where you're losing money and losing time, the strategic hire that would help you reclaim all of that, and where you are in your stage of growth and what to do next to get to the next stage. Those who have taken it really have shared feedback that what they uncovered was really helpful, and the recommendations were actionable and something that they could really do next. So you can find that at www.lowdownmortgagecommunity.com/diagnostic. Both links will be in the show notes. And Ray, thanks again for joining us. I appreciate you.
Yeah, likewise. You've been a gracious host.
Bam.
Appreciate it.
You bet. Bye.